We are back for another week. Wow, what an interesting week this is going to be, Carlo. Lots of things to talk about, to chat about, lots of interesting
Absolutely.
things, lots of
It's been a
drama.
jam-packed week.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
So much. No time for your usual niceties where you're like, Carlo, how are you? And I awkwardly say, I don't give
I
a
know,
crap,
right?
Mickey.
But
There's just, boom, things.
straight away, we're going to jump straight in today, absolutely straight in with the first piece of news. Carlo has a food delivery today that he's managed to perfectly time between the hours of 7 and 8 GMT,
Yeah.
which means that he might randomly disappear at some point during this episode. Don't worry,
I might
I
walk
will
off.
carry it. I will carry
Yeah.
it solo because I can.
So the chat has to be ready to dive in and just, chat at Mickey continuously.
Yeah, basically.
'Cause he's gonna, we all know that I carry the conversation. So,
Yeah, basically. So, yeah, that's how important this week's news is. Is that it's so important that Carlo desperately needed food because he hasn't left his seat for the past week. um, so we'll start off with Brathians. Now, Brathians have had it's been a weird week, right? Because basically they had nothing. They had absolutely nothing. Everyone was
yeah.
like, "Where's the article? Where's the article? Where's the article?"
Yeah.
And then it came a little bit later than people were thinking.
Yeah.
And then there was like even more Brathian news today, which I'm sure everyone here knows about already, but we'll get onto in a little bit. So Brathians 2020, Brathians 2021. Sorry. Let's just jump into the
2021,
cards.
Mickey.
Let's just jump into the cards. Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
New faction, new faction deck. The first full deck that we see is ignore Greyjoys. We don't count them really, because they're not a new. It's not a new deck per se or a rebuilt deck.
Well, I mean, so what I think everybody needs to do is we have two decks now, right? We
Sure.
have two 2021 decks.
Mhm.
So when I looked at this, I instantly, just thought, don't be blinded by what currently exists. Consider it in reference to the Greyjoys.
Yep.
That is what is the comparison that it needs to go against.
Mhm.
And to put things in context, like let's put things in context of what I'm going to discuss right now, which is the faction that I've played more than any other for the past 6 months is Baratheons.
Yep.
But I've sat here for the past few weeks and told you without a shadow of doubt that Baratheons won't qualify in the World Cup, despite the fact that they've been heavily picked. Do you know what I mean? Like, so that's my feelings on Baratheons as a faction. That they're one of my favorites. They're the faction that I'm painting. They're the faction that I'm playing. But I don't believe that they're competitive. So, that's the kind of perspective that we have to put on talking about changes to Baratheons.
Sure.
And there have been some players who played really, really well. We'll come to that part.
We'll come to World Cup later on. Afternoon, Richard. Afternoon, Richard. Hello, and obviously hi, Brett, and all the usuals that are in here. Right, yeah. So the tactics deck. You can compare it with the Greyjoy one, right? But this is the first rebuilt one, and I think that's important.
Yeah.
Greyjoys is a completely new one. It's hard to evaluate where that would be. This is a rebuilt one.
Yeah.
And
so it has to be compared to Greyjoys.
Yeah.
But also to its old deck and how it changed. Like that's how you're gonna see the deck. You're gonna see what it used to be versus what it is now, and what it's gonna be against other decks that it's gonna play into.
Yeah. Well, I guess
I think.
Yeah.
My first thought, I've actually changed my mind on the deck a couple of times. My first thought when I saw it was I was absolutely blinded. Just like I was mesmerized by the fact that the triggers were better. Like I just looked at them and I was like, my God, these triggers aren't overlapping anymore. And they aren't overlapping anymore. And more importantly, they're like way, way easier to pull off. It's not just that it's not the same trigger a few times over. It's that it's on a thing that I control, something that I can be proactive with, like when I make a melee attack. And I was just instantly like, this deck is so much better. But I'm not sure if I'm so convinced anymore.
Why is that? Why aren't you convinced anymore?
Because I looked really closely at what the cards actually did and their ramifications of what they have. and I just feel like they have so little impact upon the game. And I know that that's the trend we're going in. I know we're talking about tactics cards not being like game-changing things. If you've drawn a certain card, you'll just be, Michael calls it like a gotcha moment. Like, well, okay, but it's not like a gotcha because you knew your opponent had that card. But point is that I don't think that this deck has any cards that change the way the Baratheons will play in any significant manner and will do anything at all game changing. Yes, there's a ton of consistency there. Yes, there's a ton of things that you can use, and they will help if you have the right cards at the right times. But the only card that has any actual impact for me is Ours is the Fury if you've managed to empower it with multiple zones.
Sure. Yeah, I'm along the same lines. I think Bruce Craig nailed it in chat. I know he's not here today, but he absolutely nailed it. I think it was him anyway, where he said in our Patreon channel, what you see a load of more usable triggers, but actually less impact on the game. And I can't think I think it was Bruce. I can't remember if it was Bruce, but it means they're played more consistently, but have a lower impact. And the problem is that's really good, right? That's a really good thing. You want people to be using cards rather than throwing them away. Like that is a perfect. That design choice, I cannot fault. That is great. When the cards don't do anything though, or they feel low impact, it lessens the kind of like effect that the cards have within the game structure. And as a result, it becomes like, what's the board state like? Is your board state just worse than mine? Because I don't really have a card that's going to change that. Like, that's the thing that...
For me, there is less a player can do now to change what is already a bad matchup. They have less outplay potential. They have less chances to prove that they're the better player, despite the fact that they're playing the worst list.
Yeah.
Like there is potential for the worst player right now to make huge plays with huge tactics cards and be like, bang, I'm just better than you. Look at this huge play. Whereas if we take all of that away, then actually we're so much more determined by look at the roll and who just bought the more powerful list with them.
Yeah.
And, we edge, we're still a long way away from it, but we edge a bit closer towards like the 40k territory of just like set your models up, roll some dice and see who won.
Yes.
And I think that's... I'm not looking forward to that part. If it's true, you have to see the deck played before. But I believe it's very interesting that Baratheons got chosen. You know what I mean? Like, they wouldn't have chosen Baratheons to do first because you've taken what is objectively, almost factually, the weakest deck in the game and showed that in 2021, I believe personally that they've made it weaker.
Overall.
So, overall, the Baratheon deck is already the weakest deck, and they're making it weaker. So, God, you better hope that everybody else is getting made weaker.
What interested...
That's what I think old Baratheon to new Baratheon is.
What interested me, and I think this is such a big thing, a card that was widely regarded as being one of the best cards in the Baratheon deck, but not... It was game changer. It was game changer territory level of card. But it's not actually... it wasn't overpowered. It wasn't broken. And that was Stag's Resilience. The one card that they had... the one card that they had which allowed them to have a play, and more importantly, it synergized with so many things within the faction. It was their healing. It was how they did anything. Is just gone. Now they have Baratheon Justice, and Baratheon Justice is just a odd card. It works within the concept of what the Baratheons are trying to do, and it looks like Baratheons are trying to do this thing where they just have stupid amounts of token play. I feel less bad now about running Vargo in Baratheons currently, because it looks like Vargo Baratheons is actually where they're trying to push him. Like, this token play and this constant token switching and using... Basically, you're just going to token up the enemy army constantly. And that's fine. I like that. I like that style. But Doesn't mean it's good, right?
Yeah.
Um, it's hard.
So
It's hard for me.
like you say, Stag's Resilience was a card that I actually just super just used to love, right?
Mhm.
There was maybe a bit too much randomness in it. In a D3+1, that's anything from 2 to 4. That's like a doubling effect. When you're talking about controlling letters and dealing those wounds, we can talk anything from a 2-wound heal through to a 4-wound heal and 4-wound damage.
Mhm.
But you got restrictive triggers, starting engaged, and activating while starting engaged. Very restrictive trigger. But more than that, its real effect was being empowered by letters.
Mhm.
And the setup and the telegraphing of the play was quite big, in my opinion. And so I thought that the card was worthwhile.
Mhm.
The problem was that there's another card, Stag's Wit, shares identical trigger, identical stuff, but it's just worse in practically every single case. Like,
Mhm.
there's barely a case in the game where you're engaged and you don't want to heal and deal wounds.
Mhm.
So that was actually our problem. There wasn't a problem with Stag's Resilience, there was a problem with Stag's Wits. And I am sad to see it go, like there are some good cards in here. There are definitely some new, better ways. Oath of Duty's kind of on death trigger
Yeah.
now being a thing that you set up in advance, I think is a positive thing. It's good that it's just a get it, play it. I still just think that there's not a lot here. And when I compare it directly card for card with the Greyjoy deck,
Mhm.
I think it's worse. Like the Greyjoy deck has a handful, maybe 3 of its 7 cards that I'm like, yeah, they have an impact on this game.
Mhm.
Whereas right now, I think Hours of the Fury has an impact, and the rest are just like,
Yeah.
sure, play them because you can, but they don't do anything.
People in chat saying Final Strike is a good card. Yeah. Like, so Final Strike, in case you can't read it there, for each wound the defender suffers from the attack, bear in mind it's the whole attack, so includes the panic, of course, one enemy engaged with suffers 1 hit. Yeah, so you do X number of hits based on the number of wounds you've just taken. And if you control Crown, they get -1 to those hits. Yeah, great. I mean, we've seen that with Styre, right? Basically. It's the old Styre card. The thing with it is, and this is kind of like where I would say Final Strike actually sucks in Baratheon, because if Baratheon are losing a lot of wounds, yes, it's nice to deal a lot of wounds out, but you've failed at your main objective, which is having a 3+ armor save.
Yeah.
Like if this is
above
if this is
morale
if this is doing 6 hits,
is the core of what you are.
If this is doing 6 or more hits with a card, then your army sucks. Because you've just died. I think that's my problem, is that no one is willingly going to walk into this trap. And actually, if you think of it in terms of the flip side, where we see Final Strike majority of the time, yeah, we see it with Great John in Starks, who, by the way, is basically not played at all and terrible. And the other commander we see it in is Free Folk. But why does it work with Raiders? Well, Raiders works because if you come in and do 12 hits to them, they're like, ha, lol. Yeah. Because you will kill them. Whereas you're not meant to kill Baratheons. So having this card that does this kind of like hit back style strategy is not actually, it doesn't synergize. And if you think it does and it does work, then your opponent isn't playing around it and perhaps is just going to suffer from it. It does work with the standard stuff. Yeah, the Crown Kicker's good.
I like the Crown Kicker on it. It's going to help push through, your 4-up saves are now going to be. But like, I always say that people think about these cards in these abstracts of like, imagine 8 wounds. Like, okay, so start, you've taken 8 wounds, really, really bad, and you're doing 8 hits back. Most of these units, you're talking about 4-up arm save, right?
Yeah,
so
average.
4 wounds. But the reality of things, of actually, that's an extreme end, taking off a rank, and it's just hits. It's not an attack. There's no panic generated off of it. What really happens is you lose 5 wounds. You do 5 hits back. You do 2.5 wounds. You don't even really take a rank off, and its impact is low.
And I think Vicky makes a good point. Like, there are some units this would work on. For example, like the R'hllor Faithful, because they're renowned from just dying. But again, it's like this. It's still this very kind of like, you kill me and I retaliate. And the problem is, if you've not seen Melisandre Andrew lists, in those kind of like, oh, I'm going to sacrifice my health to do damage to you, they lose if your opponent actually knows how to play against it, which is come and kick the shit out of you, basically. If I come and just kick you down and like literally beat you to death with my feet and my hands and my sticks in my hands and everything I can possibly get to just beat at you, eventually you run out of wounds to retaliate. And that is the criticism, I guess, of that kind of like self-sacrifice style gameplay.
Yeah.
It's mutually assured destruction, right? It's mutually assured destruction where the enemy fires first. And in case you don't know that, that's bad. Yeah.
Final Strike is fine, right?
Yeah.
It's a fine card. I'm not telling you it's a bad card.
No. It's an okay card.
If people here in chat are saying, "Oh, but what about Final Strike?" You're like, if that's the best thing you can pull out of that deck, then things are bad. Like people don't take style. Like it's way more useful in Free Folk because of the fact that you can sacrifice tons of Raider models and suddenly make it dangerous. But no Steyr player is like, got Final Strike, pulled my best card. No, they're like, all right, Final Strike, whatever. And yes, we have to talk about it in context of like cards are getting worse.
Mm-hmm.
But still, I'm a Baratheon player, and I'm not like, man, I got Final Strike. Isn't that brilliant? I'm like, give me Last Stand back.
Yeah.
Please. That's not even a free action that I can do something crazy with. It's just an on-death retaliation. Just like, give me it back.
Yep. Now, interestingly, I think it's hilarious. Carl saying in the Wargames ID stream, Van and Ray played a game. I went to bed because it was far too late for me to watch that. And they saw the Greyjoys take down 9 wounds in a single attack from Wardens, and then Final Strike and take out 7 Greyjoys or whatever. Yeah, great. It's great that you played a card and you were able to do that, but the problem is that you lost 9 Wardens in the process. Your opponent just did 9 wounds through a 3+ save. Like, you just nearly lost a unit, and the best thing you could do was half kill an enemy unit. And I'm guessing that Ray wasn't stupid, or the Greyjoy player wasn't stupid. He didn't run in on an unactivated Baratheon unit to do that. So yeah, the other cards are okay. We focus on Final Strike. Ours is the Fury. We'll come back to that. It's a good card on its own.
Yeah.
It's one of the best cards on its own. But it betrays a massive problem that we're going to see in things later on, I think. Conviction's better. Conviction's actually a better card, which is always a positive, right? It's not complete garbage because you don't play at the start of the round for nothing.
It's gone from garbage to one of their better cards.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's all right.
But yeah, there's certainly no free attacks, which is hilarious because if you look at the Greyjoy deck, it's full of free attacks. Let's look at Stannis then. Stannis is completely just changed. He still has Will of the One True King. Basically, it's the same thing. For all intents and purposes, it's an identical card to what it was. Tactical approach is basically the same thing as well. That hasn't really changed. But we got harsh conditions, which is a really interesting thing. I don't like harsh conditions, and this is coming from a free folk player.
I don't like the wording of it.
No.
Who picks? Who picks was my first thing.
Yeah.
Like, and
I'm guessing you do because you played the card, right? That's
the assumption.
That's the assumption, and I think that's how it should be played. You wouldn't play it otherwise. I don't think it would be absolute garbage if it was the other way around. But on the flip side, like, this is just...
What's an ability? Like, I mean, I'm not trying to be facetious, but okay, so like...
I assume it means non-innate stuff, the usual stuff. If you were to surround an exposed or Walder a unit currently, things.
No. What I mean is, right, I have a greatsword, which has Sundering and Vicious.
Yeah.
Do I have to remove 2 abilities or 1 ability to get rid of those keywords? Is every keyword an ability? Or do I get rid of the greatsword, which is all of its categorization?
Mm-hmm.
So normally what we have is things lose all their abilities or things lose no abilities, right? But this idea of counting how many abilities we lost we now suddenly have to know, well, what is one ability? Like, what is? Please circle the ability. Please circle the ability on the card and tell me where it started and where it stopped.
I think the name of the ability has to be the name of literally, yeah, the great sword is the ability. So you'd have to lose the ability, which is the name. For example, if we look at Stannis, for example, it would be adaptive planning, mark target, or loyalty Stannis Baratheon. I can't imagine you'd want to make him lose loyalty. That would be pointless. But you'd choose one of the two orders, right?
Yeah.
Or boldness and courage from Renly, or embolden, or whatever. It's the word that you lose, and if that word greatsword, for example, comes with vicious and sundering, you lose both.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
There's a reason I don't like this, though. There is a reason I don't like this card, and it's because of the. I mean, it's really good. It's really easy to use with Stannis, and it's really simple to go, right? And it plays actually very similarly to Surrounded and Exposed currently does, with a bit of a payment. In all of those sense, I really like it, right? But it is essentially so easy to set up because of people like Stannis and other things, and it can be used at any time. It is, for all intents and purposes, exactly the same thing, but the payment at times is so low because you can be like, oh, here's a panic token, I'll spend a panic token on, and I can take away your aggressive ability. Or I can take away this ability or that ability, and it can be any ability on the board if you set the token up, which you can do quite easily with the other stuff.
If you have incredibly low barrier to entry to get rid of one ability.
Yes, and you only need to get rid of one.
One ability you care about.
Yeah. Imagine just having a unit of sentinels on the board in the Baratheon mirror, and use harsh conditions, and you just go, right, there you go, you remove your countercharge, done. You can't. You've set this countercharge up. This is your one play to get back into the game, but no, you don't have it. Gone. And there was no setup. You just put a token on using Stannis maybe a turn earlier with mark target.
Stannis is strong.
Stannis is really strong. Yeah, he's really strong.
Stannis is strong. Like, I've got nothing else to say other than Stannis is strong. Stannis' current problem is that his side has no good units and is massively, massively all in on these mega NCU setups. And who knows whether or not. I mean, I can't imagine that the current way they perform will survive the change. We're talking Shira Errol for 3, Axel Florent for 3, Melisandre for 5, Selyse and Shireen for 4. None of those are going to survive the change as they currently are, except maybe Selyse and Shireen. Like, maybe they think that that's fine at 4. And I'm not saying it's not. I'm just saying that's the only one I can imagine that comes out of the change looking anywhere near what it is right now.
Sure.
And they currently define how any and not just Stannis himself commanded armies, but Stannis loyalty. They define how Stannis loyalty is playing. So it's so hard to place Stannis right now. I hope that they haven't looked at how underplayed the Stannis side is and thought, oh, we need to fix the Stannis side commanders because there's nothing wrong with the Stannis side commanders. What there is Stannis side has no good units.
Yeah.
Right? There's nothing there. Like, give Lightbringers, give King's Men, give Queen's Men, and you've got a viable faction. At the moment, like, the reason Renly is popular is because of Rose Knights and the way that it synergizes well into his faction.
Yeah. Greg says there, sorry, just about harsh conditions. It costs a card and condition you put on it, so it's not insanely valuable. Yeah, it's not ridiculous value. The big difference is you lose the abilities for the round, not a turn. And the big one is that actually, if you look at the general cards that we've seen, removing a condition token is not that common. It's not just easy to remove a condition token in most decks, at least from most cards we've seen. It might be true that removing a condition token is quite easy, but it means that essentially that Stannis can always set this up and always blank any ability he wants with almost no payment. There's no counterplay, I should say. That's the big difference. For example, Surrounded and Exposed, I agree, is a very good card, right? It is a very good card, I know that. It might even be to the point where it's too good. but you can counterplay it. You can counterplay it by not having two free float units in short range. Now, the reason that's hard to counterplay and the reason that is somewhat of a problem at the moment is because free folk have more activations. They can just they can set it up themselves without you doing anything. There is no counterplay in that sense. But they only lose it for a turn. They've got to do what they want to do there and then.
Yeah.
And on the flip side, if you want to be aggressive with it, you have to play it before they activate. So it works as a delay, but it's not, it's none of this kind of like you're not doing anything around. So yeah,
it's
and with
super powerful.
it's really good. It's a really good card.
It fits with what they've been saying, which is that it's absolute hard control, right?
Yeah,
and they've been saying that hard control is a commander based thing now, and so yeah, okay, you're following your own logic. Right now, these two commanders looking at each other. I mean, we'll come on to Renly now.
Yep.
But I'm like, Renly's currently looking at Stannis like, oh god, I'm about to get shadowed babied. Like that's how disproportionately powerful these two are in my mind.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
Renly. We will see what the unit for Stannis' side turn out to be.
Renly. Embolden is better. We already know Embolden's better. We've seen it before. So it affects the unit he's in, which just makes sense. I didn't understand why it didn't before.
It was stupid that it didn't.
It was stupid. Boldness and Courage works on range attacks. We've seen this before, but it doesn't really matter. You're not going to put him in Stormcrow Archers, or you might put him in Bastard Girls, and maybe
Thornguard. Is this because Thornguard will have a short ranged attack?
Maybe
like
throwing daggers. I don't know.
That Thornguard. How do you differentiate Thornguard from Highguard and Pikeman?
Or Highguard and Pike,
from Rose Knight? How do you make those three things have different roles? And it looks like Thornguard are lightly armored, so maybe similar to my speculation is that similar to Night's Watch. Hunters.
Yeah.
Hunters, right? Yeah, the Ranger Hunters. Similar to Ranger Hunters, you're talking about something that has like an equal ranged attack and melee attack profile on their card. Like we're equally good at both. Our ranged attack is short range. Maybe we can even attack and retreat or shoot and attack. Maybe they got charging, stick 'em, volley, charging, volley, all that kind of stuff. I just wildly speculate that they're a shooting combo with melee maneuverable unit. So maybe you're like, Renly wants to empower both, otherwise you're never going to put him in there.
Yeah.
That's mostly like me running with an idea, which I already thought maybe was true. And then when I see Renly empower ranged units, I say, I feel there's more weight to the idea now.
Of course, he might just empower range units and he doesn't actually have anything in his faction, and it's the boldness and courage effect, which appears in other factions. Off the top of my head, John Attachment has boldness and courage, right? And him in a unit of Builder Crossbowmen. I'll just let you think about that, because that's 8 dice on a range attack, as it currently stands. And there could be other things as well. So yeah, pretty scary.
Yeah,
potentially.
Lito is right. Yeah, and you're right. Maybe it's just the generic boldness and courage.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking way too much about the fact that what it does and doesn't synergize with in the Baratheons. But if they've given everything a rework and they've decided that's what boldness and courage does, then why did they choose to give it to Renly? Considering, but
we'll see. Wealth and charisma. Fine. I mean.
Right.
The funny thing is, the restoring 3 wounds is like, okay, I guess. The removing a condition token from each friendly unit, it's like you literally just cleanse your entire army. Every condition token on your entire force disappears. This could be really good against a Stannis player, or against maybe a who I guess it could be good against maybe he's like Lannister or Mance. Yeah.
Will Mance stay the same? I don't know.
Also, you have to claim a zone and do a replace effect and then cleanse all the tokens off, which if you've got Stannis, you will have already played harsh decisions because it affects the full round and could just be done before they claim the zone. So it doesn't even counter Stannis, and I guess against most other things it might be good. Taking away those weakened tokens could be useful.
I don't think it's better than the zones on the board.
No, I don't.
Like,
no, I don't.
an NCU onto the board unless it's like the 5th NCU. So what? We're still assuming now we're just playing 3 NCU versus 3 NCU, and I'm trying to fill the board. Which so far I've seen nothing that tells me not to play 3 NCUs. I just take it and I'm like, all right, I'll swap it for 3 healing. So I've got a budget money bags because I don't get rid of the token, or I get the tokens instead. And yeah, they're spread across units, but like it's very specific. You can have 3 tokens across the army. Honestly, the best thing about Renly's cards is that you can cycle them for not Renly's cards.
Well, you mean one of them? One of them you can cycle for not Renly's cards.
They Will Make Me King can be played to draw a card as well,
yeah,
right?
It can. Yeah, it can.
Two of 3 of his cards can just be played to get a different card. That's the best thing you can say about Renly.
Yeah, I mean, the younger, bolder, far more comely is just +1 attack dice when you're in long range of Renly's unit. When you pass a morale check, like that's okay.
Game changing.
But like, yeah, I don't know. I don't see it. I don't see what they're doing with Renly.
I don't like him. I don't like him.
No. So yeah.
He seems so worthless. Like,
the funny thing is, the one thing that he used to be good at was like AoE clearing bears and doing wounds to things like that, and even that has been reduced to short range.
Yeah.
You know.
And I used to like that card because it had a powerful effect, but it was very telegraphed. Your opponent could play around it if they understood that you could have it. You know, it threatened some of the most powerful things in the game, but it wasn't. It required a lot of interaction. You know, like if you're clever as the Stark player, you just don't keep your dogs within 12 inches of Renly. But that gives Renly a powerful zonal effect on the board, which the Stark player is always scared of, which allows you to push things around. It has a deep, impactful role in the game without just being like, okay, I got first turn, so I'm going to choose to go second, and Walder says, do a wound at the end and do a wound at the start, and the dog is dead. Right? There's no interaction there. That's just luck. That's just who won the roll. Does my opponent have Varys? This one was more like a much more interactive way that we can both play the game, and if I outplay you, then I'll get a great result. And if not, then at least I can maybe do it to like make you be wary at times. But
it's just, to be honest, honestly, Stannis stocks right now, Stannis stocks up. If you were investing, get yourself into Stannis stocks, Stannis side armies, because Stannis rightful heir is objectively better than I think he was. Renly stocks down, and Renly wasn't amazing. He had natural synergy. He naturally was okay, but me and Carlo have proved time and time again that he just wasn't like this super like meta crunching titan. And right now
that casual thought he was.
But casual people perhaps did.
Because they charged Renly Rose Knights in the front, and they're like, "Oh my god, I lost!"
Yeah, don't charge Rose Knights. Simple as that. Just don't charge Rose Knights.
Don't charge Rose Knights.
So,
though, to be fair, with those cards, do it.
Yeah, do it. Sod it.
Good.
So anyway, that's the Baratheon tactics decks and the cards. We spent a long time on that, but it wasn't the only Baratheon thing we've had this week, right? Earlier today, last week, I think it was over the weekend, some of the guys on the main Discord had shared pictures from unknown source here, of Kingsmen, and we saw the box art, we saw the models, and we saw everything. And then this morning on the Facebook page, we saw the card. And it's been shared by all of the major content creators now. People have put things up about it. People have talked about it. So, hey, look, we'll jump on the bandwagon, I guess. We'll bring it up. Here we are, the Kingsmen. It's 7 points. I haven't got the back of the card loaded. It's 7 points. It's Stannis side loyalty, so it's only happening in 7, and it is the 2021 variant, just like we've known for a while now. People were like, "Oh, it's called 2021, not 1.7." It's like, yeah, that's news that we've had for like 6 weeks now. So Kingsmen 1.7.
Where did it come from, Mickey?
Who knows? Some it was probably China, or maybe it was Simon. Maybe Simon just went, "Hey guys, here's something you can sneak out and tell people about," because it didn't come from Michael, and it definitely didn't come from any of the other major sources. It came from some random person in the middle of nowhere, or at least I think it's
I'm
some random
nervous.
person.
I'm nervous because it's not available to order from anywhere that I know, and
And there's a box with a card out there,
yeah,
literally in
I
someone's
don't.
hands.
I'm nervous about whether or not I'm gonna get them. It's always about me. It's always about me and whether or not I'm gonna get my models. But like, it's so bad for the customer base if they can't make informed decisions about what they're gonna buy. You know, and have the ability to make sure that I only play Baratheons, so I want one version of at least this unit. You know, and to be able to pre-order it and know that they're going to get one. So
It's an odd one. I don't know. We knew that Kingsmen are coming, right? We saw the
yeah.
sculpts leaked
Yeah, way
in
back when.
fake
Asia,
Simon
Gen
Expo.
Con, or
One of the fake
Asia
expos, anyway.
Expo, or Gen Con,
I
or
say
one of
fake.
them.
The very
They
not
they're the
fake. The
same.
very real ones that were online. Yeah, they were spoiled in one of those two events. The ones that were weekend
Yeah,
after weekend. I can't remember which one. So yeah, it's great
they
that
were
we know that.
revealed, not spoiled. Like
Well, yeah,
they
revealed,
were
I
they were
guess.
revealed.
But it was 3D renders, wasn't it?
Yeah,
But it's good to know that they are coming, right? But it is a weird
I
one
mean they're
because
sexy.
you know,
I've said it loads of times. The sword. Some people have issue with the swords, say that they're a bit over the top or
yeah,
they're a bit too Final Fantasy esque, like maybe, or like that the sword guard, the hilt
yes,
is a bit too much. But like, I like them.
yeah.
I love them. As you know, that's why I'm playing Baratheons. That's why they're my favorite army to paint. So I'm super happy with that part.
The banner, by the way, the banner of the unit looks amazing. Like just his
Hmm.
pose and everything. I'd gladly just have him, to be honest. Um, yeah, very Dark Souls esque actually. Yes. Um,
Are they any good?
I don't know. My problem at the moment is it's you pick this or you pick Real or Faithful, right? At the 7 point slot in Stannis' side. Um, the problem being that they might be different tools for different jobs, but we saw that with current Berserkers versus current Great Axes, right? Stark Great Axes versus Berserkers, different tools for different jobs, and
Hmm.
I don't need to convince the people out there that one of them didn't see play at all, and one of them is a
Yeah.
competitive, dominant, like game-breaking design. Um,
Yeah.
you don't see both because objectively one is always going to be unless they're perfectly balanced to suit their roles. One of them will always be better in more situations, so you take it more often. We saw that with the
Yeah.
7 point Great Axes versus Berserkers, and we're probably going to see it with Kingsmen Rule of Faithful, and that's got nothing to do with the design team balancing things. It's
Yeah.
purely because it's really hard to get that right. It's almost impossible.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Unless their roles are like symbiotic and synergistic with each other,
yeah,
and that having one of each empowers each other, then one is better than the other if they're at the same price point
hmm
and they fill anywhere close to a similar role on the battlefield.
and if we look at Rule of
You're only
Faithful, they're
Yeah.
only one. Current stats, obviously, they've got a better morale. They are one less armor. Their attack line is basically the same. So what you're paying for in the King's Men is you're gaining one armor, you're losing the effects of Rule Faithful, which is vicious and everything, for to be able to draw a card from your deck, which can give you +1 to hit, or vicious, or sundering.
Hmm.
So you're trading a keyword to get a card back that can maybe give you more than one.
Yeah. See, what I would
I don't
actually
know.
have liked is, I think that to make that not a thing, their card retrieval of Ours is the Fury should have only been from deck. What
Yes.
that would have meant was there was value in having one, but like having two or three of them is pointless because there's only so many Hours as the Fury you can pull out of your deck. But it's deck or discard pile. So if this turns out to be a really good unit because other things around the same price get like reduced in their attack strength and this is as good as attacks get, a 7/6 by comparison to a lot of things that we've seen, it seems they're very, very scared of an 8 attack profile these days. a 7/6 might just be like the best you can possibly get
Mhm.
on a unit at this kind of price range with 3+ to hit. Throw in that Hours of the Fury is one of the few cards that I think is impactful in the deck. We could be looking at King's Men being a spammed unit.
Sure.
I'm saying could, And if that's true, then your ability to just pull this same card from your discard and use it It's got such an easy trigger now. It's just when you make an attack, it's just
Yeah.
get attacked, draw it, make an attack, get attacked, draw it. And your whole army has this thing. You can't not attack the units that are drawing the card because all my units have it.
Hmm.
And we could just end up with this like absolute cycle, and it could be incredibly impactful and incredibly powerful. If we got rid of the discard part, then it would just have a self-limiting factor
Hmm.
of brilliant, do it a couple of times, but your combo is now broken. And I think that would have made it much easier to balance them against it's worthwhile having one,
Hmm.
it's not worthwhile spamming this unit.
Yeah. It's an interesting one. It really is. Because I actually think that they're not very good, but they could be really good, and that's the thing. Because we're trying to compare them too much with the modern stuff. And Leet Teddy there, Chris, saying you can't really compare them to Current Faithful. I think you can, because Current Faithful, if you look at them, are below the standard of where they need to be. They are below the current power level of the matter. And if you take down everything that we've seen, actually Faithful pretty much hit that curve, pretty much spot on. Like, if you look at their current stats, Faithful look very similar to King's Men. They're almost identical for the points cost. So I actually think you can compare them, and I would say that Faithful are probably quite well costed for 7, whereas at the moment they feel like a 6-point unit in 1.6.
So Deoxys makes a point, which is they talk about the fact that attachments are supposed to be very, very important in the future.
Yes.
That is a way where we can make units way more unique.
Yes.
Because there can only be one variant of this unit with this attachment. But you cannot design a unit with full intention that it can only be competitively fielded with one particular attachment.
Mm-hmm.
Or that it basically synergizes amazingly with one attachment and none of the others. That's how we end up with like just some things never getting used and like not brilliant balance.
Yeah. I
now have to go to the door.
All right. So solo carry this for 10 minutes or so. But no, so it's an interesting one. I don't think they're bad. I really don't think the King's Men are bad. Right? Before anyone goes like, oh, you think they're rubbish? Oh, you're just downplaying all the cool new stuff. I think it's a really cool new toy, and I can guarantee you, as like a semi-Baratheon player, I will be playing this in lists. I just really don't know whether it's good. It's definitely not bad. At Mickey says Ola, thank you. Yes, I'm smashing it out. So yeah. Also, Charles Cassier, yeah. Variance is cool. Having options to check out different units and be like, oh, I want to try this because obviously non-competitive. Definitely agree. Like having variety is good, and I do 100% agree with that sense. But obviously, when we're talking about it, we're mainly looking at the competitive side within these kind of breakdowns. But yeah, no, I do agree. It is important that we understand that there's other aspects to it as well. 7-point infantry scene is so dominated by berserkers. Yeah, exactly. It does. And yeah, it's easy to compare them to New Swarm Brothers. We've seen those. Which one's better for 7 points? Which one would you rather pick? What was the trigger for New Stag's Wit? The new trigger for Stag's Wit was when a friendly unit gains a condition token. It's basically it's very similar to Fire Burns Against the Cold in that kind of sense. To the last kind of just sucks. It does and it doesn't. I think so. Hear me out with this one. To the last is a direct call to using Stannis' loyalty, what we currently know as what's it called? The thing Stannis loyalty, True Loyalist. There you go, True Loyalist. True Loyalist, in case anyone doesn't know, because let's face it, no one ever plays True Loyalist attachments. You attack, if you're on your last rank, you can pretend you're on your second rank. So you won't, in the case of the King's Men, you jump from 4 dice to 6 dice. Devon, Davos, Andrew Estamont attachment all have True Loyalist. Um, I actually think that this To the Last ability is to try and push you to synergize with those particular components. Like a Devon, you do this ridiculous charge, you hit really hard, and then you're like, right, I'm gonna hit back, but I won't. I know I won't die, or at least I probably won't die because I'll pass this morale check, and then I'll get one another big more hitting. Um, I like the idea. I do like the idea. I like the concept. I understand the design that they're going for, and I think it's cool. But thinking it's cool and liking it are very different to it being good. Um, so yeah, I think there's that trade off, and yeah, because it's on a morale test, it's 6+ morale is not great. Um, so yeah, it feels of quite a it's such a it's like a last ditch attempt rather than a actual like nice ability. Um, so yeah. Plus, if you're ever killed by the wounds, you might pass the morale check, but you might fail the panic check directly afterwards. Pff, no good. So that is King's Men. We saw those revealed today and kind of like over the weekend. Any other news from Simon? I think that was it. Of course, though, that wasn't the only news. We will come back to talk about other news from the week as a whole. But while Carlo is gone, I thought we'd have go into a special, super secret little tidbit that I found out when Carlo was gone. Carlo's back, but I'm still going to give you this little tidbit because this is hilarious, and I was trawling the archives today, desperately trying to find more content. I know, finding more content when we've got this week. But let's just have a look at this article that Carlo wrote back, all the way back in January 25th. This was hosted on the popular website for articles back then. This was an analysis of 1.5, well 1.4 actually. It was an analysis of not many games. It was like 100 games analysis that Carlo first did before the site really became popular. Yes, this is over a year ago. The site has existed for over a year. People don't realise that. Think it's just a lockdown thing. No, it was before lockdown. I just wanted to get you guys to feast your eyes on this. This is 1.4.
You're not supposed to hold me to my own words. This isn't fair.
I think that Starks needed a bump, and only time will tell if they have received it.
Only time will tell. They got a bump, didn't they?
Yep, they did. So Carlo, a year ago, just over a year ago, was saying, Starks need a buff. Carlo, are you regretting that kind of cry?
Well, I mean, nobody was listening to what I had to say back then, so it ain't my fault that they did get a bump. I think we were discussing this just before the chat. To put this in context, I think this happened between 1.5 and 1.5.1.
Yes.
So it's when we saw the 1.5 rule book and that we had seen that dire wolves were now worth 1 point.
Yep.
But it was before we saw Rickon get reduced and Bran and Hodor get reduced. And it's also before we saw Grey Axes get reworked, possibly. I would say, yeah, maybe that one. Maybe that one came true, and I didn't want it to come true.
I think I agree.
They definitely got a bump.
I agree with chat here. 1.6 Charles, 1.6 is Carlo's fault. Richard, boo. Deoxys, the start meta is Carlo's fault. West Coast Bannerman, everyone blame Carlo. I'm just reading all of these ones out now. I hope you realise. Greg, Carlo, please no more predictions. We can't handle another year of this. Yes, 100% Carlo. 1.6 is entirely your fault. No one else can blame.
Please read the paragraph 2 down, because it's actually
This is actually legit. Free Folk saw a couple of stealth changes in both the change and panic mechanics, and they may struggle to find good spacing to achieve the charges a Horde list relies upon. But they are the biggest beneficiaries from the panic damage, being limited to D3+1. I believe them to be, in the hands of an experienced Free Folk commander, the current faction to beat.
I stand by it.
Carlo stands by that, and when we look at the World Cup in a minute, I stand by that comment as well. I stand by Carlo's comment as well. So
2 weeks into 1.5, I could already tell you that Free Folk were a fucking powerhouse. And honestly, it's going to be no different in 2021.
Not
Within 2
necessarily.
weeks, we will know what is good and what is not.
It is interesting. It is interesting. So, before we move on to World Cup, Carlo, is there any other news you want to cover from this week? We've done Baratheons, we've done more Baratheons, we've done Baratheon Plus. What else happened? Oh, I know what else happened.
Go on.
Big one, because I know you've listened to this and I actually haven't. I'm lazy.
I have listened to it.
Michael Chanel stepping out and interacting and being on a podcast with someone other than his best friend, right? Or one of his best friends in the community. If Michael listens to this, legitimately, it is the best thing he has ever done. Even if the content itself, whatever, reaching out, talking to, communicating with a different content creator is the best thing that Michael Chanel has ever done. Period. You know, don't get me wrong, he made a song Rise and Fire.
Because I have listened to it.
Yeah.
And it is the only thing that Michael Chanel has done in the past 6 months that I have any interest in, right? It's actually really good. Like, honestly, so what we're talking about, we sort of danced around it.
Yep.
I don't know why people dance around these subjects. 3 Sales Gaming.
Yep.
Brett and George interviewed Michael Chanel just this week. Or, you know, I don't know when it actually happened, but it came out this week. It's a brilliant interview. I'm just going to say absolutely flat out, it was a very good interview. I was surprised how candid Michael was and discussed.
Well, essentially.
And I was surprised that he was willing to be asked, you know, like not confrontational questions, but interesting questions that people want to know. And it put into perspective that he has not discussed anything of relevance in the past 8 weeks of being interviewed in what are effectively fluff, like promotional pieces, not interviews. They're not interviews, everything else he's been doing, because he's not being asked questions that people care about. So that's not an interview.
Yep.
I thought it was brilliant. I thought George did very, very well. Obviously, I have problems with it. You know, like, I'm never happy.
Of course you're never happy. It's classic, classic Carlo. You can never be happy.
No, I'm unable to be happy. I'm stuck in a unhappy state. So, you know, like, all I ever do is I'm on the scale of unhappy to absolutely miserable. That is my life.
Yeah, no.
But I'll go through it. Because I actually recently re-listened to it because I wanted to, you know, give it some time and then think about it. You know, like, really good content. You should give it a few goes over.
Go on.
First thing, there are some things that I disagreed with in terms of Michael's answer. You know, like, but I wasn't like, that's bullshit. You know, I was just like, well, I disagree. For a start, I know Brett's here. Brett, I'll tell you what is bullshit, and it's bullshit. Like, I don't care if it's popular opinion or not. The best player in the world isn't some random that nobody's ever heard of, right? If that random person came onto TTS and started to try and compete in a big tournament like the World Cup, they would get absolutely rinsed. I'm not saying that a person couldn't be very, very good, and there aren't like local players who don't play against other people who couldn't learn to be the best player in the world very quickly and pick up the game very quickly. But there's nobody hiding in the corners, in the shadows, who knows something amazingly intrinsic that the other 1,000 or at least couple of hundred very, very competitive online TTS players haven't worked out and tested and found out. Stop saying that. Just stop, Brett. That person doesn't exist. You think the best player in the world is some doctor who plays against a surgeon wife? Well, no, sorry, but I'm the doctor, yeah? I'm the best player in the world.
No, you're not the best player. Jesus.
Anyway. That one I was just straight up calling bullshit on.
Yeah. Well, it's important.
There were some things that I didn't like that Michael said. I feel like he talks about the online meta. We get to this discussion about the online meta, and he discusses it like it's another meta. Well, no, it's not. I'm sorry. Again, it might be an unpopular opinion, but it has swallowed every other meta in inverted commas that exists. Every good player who plays is playing on TTS right now or not playing. People like the people in random stores. I'm not saying there's nobody good, but we've seen a ton of people in the World Cup. I've been told, oh, watch out for this guy. He's coming along. He plays in our store. He's really good. Comes into the World Cup. He's 3-1. Losses to wins, right?
Yeah.
He's not going to qualify. At best, he's at 2-2. Yeah, he might be playing well with a list which is a bit off meta because he's not like conforming to like what everybody else is playing, and he's a good player. But if he actually understood the game the way the TTS community do and have been looking at what's been winning, then he could be going 5-0, winning the event. But the problem is that, you know, like he's not up to date with what, like the game has moved so far forward in the past eight months. TTS and the international tournaments have developed the game at a pace which is so much quicker than anything else in the past.
Mm-hmm.
The game has accelerated hugely.
Yeah, so this is actually a very good point I was going to bring out, and this isn't actually a dig at anyone or anything. You know, A Song of Ice and Fire is just not different, right? A Song of Ice and Fire is just not different than any other game in terms of how power and how quality and things has evolved. When you're at home, sitting in your local meta, you will play things, and you might be really good. You genuinely might be really good. It is possible. The thing is that just because you're really good doesn't necessarily mean that that translates to the international side. Because the thing is, for every one player in your meta, if you scale it up, there are 20, 30, 40 people in the international side of it who are doing the same thing. Yeah? And they can develop list and they can learn much faster as a collective, right? And that's actually what A Song of Ice and Fire Stats is all about. It's about learning as a collective. It's about we as a group of people can accelerate the speed of the rate at which we learn. Right? It's
have information at our fingertips.
Yeah.
Like we can learn from other people without having to see them play.
Mm-hmm.
And so we can understand what's going on elsewhere without needing to.
Yeah.
Also, like he basically, the thing that actually annoys me continuously
Go on.
is that, you know, for a decent period of the talk, I mean, they explicitly talked about the World Cup, which we will come to talk about. But I'm sorry, let's give it its proper title, the A Song of Ice and Fire Stats World Cup. Nobody wants to talk about where this information is coming from. It is coming from A Song of Ice and Fire Stats. Right? It didn't exist before Song of Ice and Fire Stats came along. The acceleration of the game and the ability to play these TTS tournaments with us being able to see the results, talk about the results. But A Song of Ice and Fire Stats remains the boogeyman. Nobody wants to say its name.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or Carlo's going to turn up and just go,
Ooga
"Stop so
booga."
big!
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
which is something you've never actually said straight up.
I am butthurt. I am butthurt.
Carlo's
you know
butthurt.
I mean?
We need a butthurt
no,
Carlo.
You know what I mean? Like,
that's what we need.
it does. It is what it is. We'll never get past that. I don't think. Like, I think that it will never be talked about.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I think that Chanel does not understand A Song of Ice and Fire Stats. He believes that it represents only TTS.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, a lot of other people have said that to me too, but that's not true. Every major event in the past year has also been run through A Song of Ice and Fire Stats. So the problem is that there haven't been enough major events to outweigh the fact that only competitive play right now is on TTS because of COVID, of course, you know?
Yeah.
I hope that when we transition back to
the real
normality,
outside
the real world, that every major tournament will still be on A Song of Ice and Fire Stats. And then at that point, you know, it doesn't represent the online meta. It represents the meta. It is the game and all representations of it played competitively.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, like that's always been its goal. I mean, its goal is to inform players about what other people are playing and how they're doing with them. and to measure the imbalance in the game. That's all,
I
and
think
help people understand it.
I think Charles says it really well there. Actually, even if only TTS represented the game, it's still the same game with the same rules. Even if it does only
Yeah.
represent TTS, and again, like we go back to the discussion, if hundreds of people playing online and learning from each other and developing and using statistics to back up what they're doing, and if they're learning at an accelerated rate, an exponentially accelerated rate, I might add, by definition, everyone else is either far ahead of the curve and they are like literally a wonder kid at a Song of Ice and Fire,
Mm-hmm.
or what they are is they're behind the curve. And if they're not behind it now, they will be in 2 days' time, in 3 days' time, in 4 days' time. So yeah, it's it's one of those things. That doesn't mean we're trying to define it either. The players define the meta ultimately. It's just the statistics drive the players, and that's actually another thing.
That's like a topic that I disagree with him
Yeah.
on. I don't think that Michael understands the competitive community, the TTS community properly, and I think that he misrepresents it in the discussion. I'm actually, all I can say is positive things, that he engaged with the question in a
Yep.
very open way. Like we can only say what our opinions are,
Mhm.
and that bit's great. I thought the whole interview was brilliant. If you haven't listened to it, listen to it. It's way better than the other stuff that Michael has been participating in. It will give you lots of informed discussion about the game and stuff like that. And like I say, I thought the questioning was great. I would have liked there to have been some follow up and for him to be pressed on his opinion some more. Like sometimes I would say that George put something to him. Michael gives an answer that I personally don't agree with, and then George just doesn't follow it up with what do you mean by this or anything like that. But hey, that would be 11 out of 10 interviewing technique, and
yeah.
for the UK people, you'd practically be Michael Parkinson at that point.
Exactly. And the other flip side of it, you never know. When someone doesn't open up much about a question in a situation like that, it usually means you don't really want to ask that question anymore. Hence the reason we talk about, Parkinson and Paxman.
Exactly. So the interview was great, and it was going great, and I was like, I disagree, but okay. And then there was one thing that Michael said towards the end, which I was actually like, no, I'm sorry, that's bullshit. Towards the end, Michael referred to something that he calls meta crunch, which is the problem. So I will paraphrase, and I don't want to misrepresent George, so go and listen to it if you haven't. But as far as I can tell, George basically says, for me, as Baratheons, I don't believe that I can currently beat mammoths, dragons, and direwolves. What do you sort of say to that? At what point do you think that this is an issue that needs to be addressed? And Michael's response was, your problem is that we've released too much too fast, and you haven't been able to react to it yet. That's wrong. That's just flat out wrong. The game and the speed at which the TTS community is reacting and understanding balance is tenfold better than it was a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
You could not release good, balanced, equal units fast enough that the meta can't react fast enough and doesn't have time to understand it.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is that you've released broken shit. Like, is bad. And if your answer is, oh, your releases that are also equally broken come out in 3 months' time, you just need to wait, then we're just talking about power creep. We're not talking about good balanced games. We're talking about power creep. We've basically gone and looked at the 40K model of release a new broken piece of crap every 3 months and everybody will have to buy it. And you've gone, that's a cool business model. Why don't we adopt that one?
Mm-hmm. And Charles said there is they missed the release of the answers. And again, if they've missed the release of the answers, then what you're saying is that the stuff you've currently got is all rubbish, and what you need to use is the new stuff. Buy new things. Commercialism, right? That's consumerism. That is power creep because they want to sell models. I understand that. You know, I work in an industry where that is completely understood. You do things for the money. I am not blind to that, you know, and actually I think it's a good thing that they understand that, but it doesn't mean it's good for the game. Um, you know, and that's the issue there. But yeah, it's
I
interesting.
hated that answer. That's all, like I'd just say like all the rest was like, okay, that's a talking point. I can understand how people have different views on that. That one I was just like, no, no, don't sell me that lie.
Yeah,
Either you don't understand, have no comprehension of what dragons have done and what mammoths are doing to the game right now. You either have no idea about what it's doing, or you're just like towing the party lie and just like saying everything's fine.
yeah.
Like to me, only one of those two could be true. For that only that one answer, that one answer, I was like, God, don't sell me that lie.
Interestingly, though, I will say, and this is actually something that you know, perhaps we will, you know, we will see, perhaps, but with mammoths and dragons being pulled from shelves or not being sent to shelves properly, um, maybe that was part of their solution. Maybe they realised that actually putting these things out right now was not the solution, and having all of these things, and again, it comes back to what we said before, releasing everyone's broken stuff at the same time was at least fair. I don't agree with that from a game perspective, but at least everyone would have had something cool. You know what I mean?
Where's my Lannister broken stuff?
Hmm? It's
Where's
the
my
mount.
Lannister broken
It's the
stuff?
man. It's the mountain that rides that comes out in Lannister Hero Box 3, which I'm guessing is sometime later this year. I'm guessing.
Right.
It is. I mean, come on, the mountain that rides is ridiculous. You prove
So,
that.
so he's not getting changed. He's still just going to be broken, right?
I reckon he
And
might
he's
just be
still just going
broken.
to be an auto include. And if I do include him, then my army's going to have like a 70% win rate. And if I don't, he's going to have like a 30% win rate.
Yeah, sounds about right. Anyway, we don't know. We don't know. We can only look at what we can look at, right? So,
Yeah.
World Cup. We'll finally move on. Oh no, there was one more thing. One more bit of news. Jesus,
Is
this
that?
came out. Yeah, this
God,
came out
we got another
on
one for me to run. Come on.
Monday, and it comes back onto a previous point we made. This came out on Monday, and it was made by a group called We Are the Gamers.
All right. Okay.
Or sorry, it's not We Are the Gamers. It's Were the Gamers, but he pronounces it We're the Gamers. That's just a. I'm an English teacher, man. I got to pick up on these grammar mistakes. Partially an English teacher. Anyway, We're the Gamers, as they call themselves, and a guy called Greg. He released a video on stats, and he broke down the statistical analysis of the 1.6. Well, it wasn't 1.6 of 2020. Firstly, he put a lot of effort in. Right, I have actually trawled through his entire spreadsheet of statistics now. Yes, I am that boring. I have looked at all of them. He's put a lot of effort into collecting and collating this information, and for that reason, I applaud him. I really do, because he's put the effort in. He really does want to get an answer to a question that he's asking. But just because you put effort in doesn't mean your end product is actually good. And
I'm gonna tread lightly here because
go on.
Everyone here is well aware
Mhm.
that I slam the developers. Right?
Oh yeah, that's just you.
We just have, right? I just
Yeah.
have for a while. They are paid to do a job. We purchase a product from them.
Mhm.
I have, in my opinion, every single right to question anything they do and say anything negative I want. I try not to say negative stuff about anybody else's content.
No, I understand.
That said, I was super interested
Mhm.
and excited that other people are taking stats seriously. That think that there needs to be more stats.
Definitely.
Do you know what I mean? Tells you that like maybe people will. He's been working on this for a long time.
Yeah.
He says he's been collecting, and I use inverted commas, collecting this data for like the past year. So he's put in a ton of work, made a video, all brilliant things. I do think that there's some big human errors in his analysis.
Mhm.
So like I don't just want to shit on it because
No, that's obviously not the point.
I'm a professional statistician. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so, like, I don't just want to say it's bad. I'm super, super interested that he's doing it. I was very confused and annoyed by. I've always built a Song of Ice and Fire stats because I wanted people to go on it and talk about stats. And look at the results, and I've tried to create ways for you to break it down, look at them, analyze them, make a video about it, say what cool things you found, do all this stuff. What he did was he spent a long, long time manually taking all the results off a Song of Ice and Fire stats and putting them into a spreadsheet. As far as I can tell, like 90% of his work will have been turning results, which I spent a long time getting people to collect, into a database, and then just moving them into a different database with manual human error, which no longer could account for draws, could no longer account for mirror matchups, could no longer. It didn't account for resignations. It didn't count for destroyed opponents.
No.
So, like, I want more people to talk about stats. I want more people to do stuff. I want more of it. I think that's great. I question where he approached it from.
Yeah.
And why he thought that what he needed to do was take the
Existing.
5,000 results there are on a Song of Ice and Fire stats now.
Yeah.
And then start manually taking the ones he cherry picked that were valid, in his opinion. Plus, some results from T3, which don't have any commander information. So now we're only talking about factions. We're not talking about commanders anymore. Which a long time ago, we determined that commanders were the most impactful and unbalanced thing that within internal balance in terms of the factions. So
he used tabletop TL as well. As well as things. My actual concern was, again, not anything to do with what he was trying to achieve, and like no problem with any of that. My problem is coming at it from a professional attitude, I guess, when it comes to these things, in the same way that Carlo does. You put some statistics out there. If Carlo was to produce this during his job, he would actually have to go up against rigorous defense of his statistical breakdowns of all of his things. He would have to state all of his assumptions. This is how you do statistics. You have to come up with models. And come on, internet warriors, man. We saw at the start of COVID where people were going, oh, your model's wrong. Oh, your model's wrong. Because that's what people do. You don't just make a model and say it's right. You make it and you question it. We, as our backgrounds, we question that data, and we question it not because we want him to be wrong. We want to understand it better. And when we question it and we realize that actually it doesn't have that greater understanding behind it, and I literally trawled through the entire database of results, guys. I'm not even joking to you. I'm not trying to pull apart his thing. I was literally just trying to understand it all and see interesting things. And I found some interesting things actually within the data as well from some tournaments that weren't run on stats. But the thing is that it's still not the way you do statistical breakdowns. And it's that rigorous kind of like, I would rather he would come back and redo a video after doing some more statistical analysis and come back with a fresh approach and do it in a kind of like correct manner. And even if his results come out to be different than ours, I still think that would be really good content. And I actually want to applaud him if he comes out and does another video on it. 100% I will be one of the first people to watch it. I've watched his first video maybe 15 times already. I was really interested in it. I thought it was really good. It just wasn't, it didn't hit that requirement for us.
I've been waiting, actually. I've been waiting for a long time. I've been waiting for a long time for somebody to take something which I've said on one of my videos and then go into my own data and find a reason why it's not true. I've been waiting forever for somebody to like analyze the data, which I've spent a ton of time collecting, and for them to come with an argument and a discussion and like engage with the Song of Ice and Fire stats and say, have you seen this? You guys keep saying XYZ is really good, but you know what? These stats say they're not. And I'd be like, whoa, that's super cool. Let's talk about it. You know what I mean? Let's look at it together. And
it hasn't happened yet.
So for a lot of reasons, when I first saw it, I was like, this is great.
Yeah.
It's odd, like some people say in this chat, it feels a little bit like somebody who's done it without knowing that a Song of Ice and Fire stats exist. Like,
And yet uses the information
put
from
that, it's what I was building and putting together
Yeah.
a year and a half ago before I built the website. And once I'd done it for like 3-4 months, got people to submit me data, collected tournaments manually, I thought, yeah, we can do something great with this. We can turn it into a website.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like he didn't know it existed and that it was already out there. And yet, when asked, and again, this thing that I always talk about, the majority, or at least a lot of his data, comes from Song of Ice and Fire stats, but he never mentions it.
Mm-hmm.
When asked, where does this data come from? He says, oh, it's from a Song of Ice and Fire stats and T3. It's like, okay, so you do know it exists.
Yeah.
You knew it was there. Okay.
I just wish people were honest and open. I think it's great. We want more collaboration. That's what we want. We'd rather work as a big group and trying to achieve this great kind of like system of an amazing game, because that's what people in 40k do all the time. And I'm not saying 40k is a great game, but the point is it's popular. And we want to create a game that's both popular and amazing, and we've got the amazing game already. We just want to, make it better, more popular. So
people are too scared to come and argue with me.
Supposedly.
That's true. That's very true. People throughout my entire life have been telling me that they're scared of me. I think I come off intense.
You just the thing is, you're just confrontational, and you don't mind being it, and some people don't like that.
Exactly.
That's all it is.
Exactly. Come at me with your best shot. Prepare for a week. Get your stats. Come at me with your best shot and see if you can take me down. That's what I'm saying. I love getting taken down a few pegs because my ego is already way too big.
Mm-hmm. Charles wants scripting reading access to the database, which that would be an interesting one. All right then. Should we actually talk about the World Cup then? We skirted around it for so long.
Yes.
Europe,
but
NA.
not predictions. They're off limits.
Predictions are off limits, are they? Well, maybe we'll come on to them. Right, let's have a look at...
It might come up, might it?
It might come up. EU.
It's been a big week.
It has been a big week.
Getting to crunch time. It's getting super interesting. I'm actually... People will be well aware. People will know that I've not been super engaged with the game for like December, January. I'm starting to build excitement about the game. I'm not playing, but just seeing people play at a high level, seeing people be interested in the tournament, seeing people really care about it, want to practice, want to play lists, want to discuss what's winning, what's not winning. Having people come at me and tell me that I'm stupid because Baratheons have definitely qualified. That makes me interested in the game again. And I'm surprised. Actually, I didn't think that the World Cup was going to rejuvenate my interest in the game, particularly as I wasn't entering. But it has, so things are getting interesting.
Yes. Duncan. I'll get onto that comment in a second. So EU first of all. We've got the top 8 there. Obviously, it's subject to change in the last week. Technically, any one of the top 22 players can still qualify. It goes all the way down to 22 is the last qualify spot. There's Mr. Ray currently on 8 tournament points, unfortunately illegal. One of the guys from Slovenia, he won the Slovenian Masters. He just creeps in under at 7 points, so he cannot qualify.
Because he resigned.
Yeah.
So that's his problem. He resigned and scored 0 tournament points for one of his losses. And if he just finished the game, he would have scored 1 tournament point and would be in the same bracket as everybody else.
Now, if we think about it, how likely is it that some of these people are going to qualify? It's unlikely. It's not impossible. It's not entirely impossible. But if you're looking anywhere, probably...
14 maybe, Wape and above.
Wape,
9 secondaries.
9 secondaries.
10 secondaries. Locks. Oh my god. Locks. Locks is on the absolute borderline.
I'm actually going to mention Larks in an interesting statistic here as well. We'll get onto in a minute, but it's got something to do with one of his 3 numbers.
Yay.
So these people can still qualify, right, down to 22. But let's face it, it's going to be hard. You're going to need results to go your way so much. You're going to need to get crushing wins and essentially every other game to go narrow, right? That is how much it's like unlikely to happen. And even then, you'd need certain other games to go standards. You know, it's crazy. It's unlikely, but WAP is probably in like the last spot, which has got a good chance, I would say. And then we move into like better and better chances as we go up the table. Larks down at 13th. Yes, we know how strong Larks is, but Larks has been beaten quite comprehensively twice now. Tom, Winter is Coming, put in a... I guess it was.
Give it a little click, Mickey. Show off that little pop up. I'm quite proud of it. To be honest,
one.
Now that I've
Pachow.
for it.
There you go. Annoyingly, I've got it cut off the bottom.
Little win, loss, win, loss.
Win, win, loss, win for this guy. And we don't quite see the result, but he pulled off an 12-11 victory over Larks in what looked like a desperate clutch of straws at the end, where it all just kind of like fell into his lap a little bit, and he went, yeah, okay, I'll do that, and I'll win. Well streamed. It was apparently a very good game. I didn't watch the game when it was live. I had to go and do other things. But yeah, really, Richard, new. It was brought in last Monday, and we forgot to highlight it. And Roos said it looks awesome. It was a great idea. Oh yeah, it was a great idea, Bruce. Was it Chris Eustace or Bruce that mentioned it? Big shout out to some of the patrons giving us some ideas. A really good idea and easy to implement. You know. And it is beneficial.
Was it easy for you to implement?
No. Do you know how I know it was easy for it to implement? Because it took you less than 5 hours to do.
I think it took me about 20 minutes from somebody to asking for me to making it something that existed on the website. So,
yeah, exactly.
It was clearly desperately hard coding to do. It was just one of those lucky things that, like, basically everything that needed to happen already existed, and all I did was just move a bit of code around. So luckily enough, I pretty much already made it happen, and then we just made it really easy to find it. But I'm really pleased with it. You know, like, I'd never thought of it, and sometimes people like just ask for something, and I'm like, I didn't think that people would want that, but turns out, yeah, that's cool. That's a cool idea. So let's make it.
I'm gonna just get rid of my bottom. There you go. So, oh, that's not worked at all, has it? I was going to get rid of my bottom filter, so... there we go. Done. So we can actually see more of it. There we go. Hides the logo, but I'm sure we can manage. I think everyone knows that we're a Song of Ice and Fire stats when they're here. Yeah, Winter is Coming pulled over a nice victory over Larks, but the reason I wanted to mention Larks is we see some big numbers. Bazonko with his Targaryens, Mother of Dragons, no doubt. 94 UDs, right? That's big. Malleus with 90. That's a big number. Rossi sitting on 88. There's some other players up there. Larks has killed 105 points of units over 4 rounds. That is an average of 26 plus, 27 basically, points per round killed. Average.
Yeah.
And he's lost 2 games.
Out every game.
Yeah.
And loses.
Hey, there you go. That says a lot, doesn't it? It's absolutely crazy.
I wonder if it's a shift to the new deployment zones being that much quicker and easier for players to get into position and start scoring points. Larks has always played a very standoff style, and maybe it's just costing him in terms of pure VPs. You know, you'd have to look at the specifics of the game about whether or not why that's happening, or maybe this big experiment he's gone with this double Howland setup just isn't working for him. You know, like, maybe it's winning the fight, but it's not winning the game. And, you know, like, anybody who's very experienced against free folk knows that those two things can be very, very separate conditions. Winning the fight against free folk is one thing. Winning the game against them when everything they have is insignificant is totally different. They're worlds apart. So that mystery person who did not think that Larks was going to qualify is suddenly looking incredibly intelligent.
Yeah. Now, interestingly, what I was going to say, because it feeds into another thing that we're going to bring up, is units destroyed are not the be all and end all. Like, if you're going to win games, you tend to going to have more units destroyed anyway. It's just the
Yeah.
nature of how the game works. But then, like, going out to kill your opponent is not the be all and end all. We see it with Mahoney's Law, who's on 2 wins, 2 losses with only 50 points destroyed, right? And yet he's up there. You know, what is more important about this game is the objective of the game and how you choose to make that objective clear. And
Yeah.
this feeds very much into something we can talk a long time about, but it's the current top 8, which does include some Baratheons, but the actual bigger point is that there are 4 free folk. I'm lucky. I'll say lucky. I'm up there undefeated. We've got Malleus and Lyca and Winter is coming, all having lost 1 game. Right? Why are free folk in the top of the table this heavily? Now, Lyca is a free folk player through and through. Malleus is a free folk player through and through. If you don't know I'm a free folk player, then I don't know where you've been hidden under a rock. Winter is Coming is not a free folk player. He's a neutral player, but he was a very good one at that. And you give him a
fact. The law.
I think he's playing it for the law. Yeah. He comes into free folk who are a better faction than neutrals. I've got no bones about saying that, and he can do well. And there's a theme. There's a theme because we don't see this mirrored in the same way in NA. Right? And the theme, I believe, although let me know if I'm wrong, we've evolved beyond killing units as to winning games. We've transcended.
Evolved.
I know, right? We've transcended. Right?
Transcended.
Transcended.
Oh, this is powerful words from
Right.
Mickey.
No. The reason that free folk have always been very good, but the reason they've done badly, is because free folk play the game mode very well. They don't kill things. They actually don't kill things that much, to be honest. They just play the game mode very well, and they force you to make bad mistakes, and thus you get units killed.
Yeah.
Like, in the end of the day, game modes are being played now, and people are winning on the game mode, not trying to kill their enemy. In the EU, this is so clear that people are winning because they're playing the game modes to the maximum extent, and if they lose more units but win, who gives a shit? You've still won.
Yeah, I do agree. You know, like, forget any discussions about, you know, whether or not NA or EU style is better. I think nobody would seriously question that as an overall trend. You know, there are going to be unique players that are playing differently. As an overall trend, EU plays in a much more objective orientated way and a much less aggressive killy way of playing the game, and has been that way for a long time, and that is reflected in the percentage choices of what factions they take and the list design that they come up with, and then that rolls on into playing the game. Now, of course, there are times where killing opponents is absolutely key to playing the objective of the game, but I think that there is a balance of which is considered the paramount of importance to each of these styles of play. And I think that in the US, you know, people are playing for a kill, and in the EU, people are playing for control of various victory points, control of objectives.
Yeah, definitely.
As a general thing, as a general rule, you know, like, not a rule, just an observation. I think you're very right.
Yeah, and it goes over. So this is what we see. This is what we see in the EU, right? And we see the free folk. I mean, I'm gonna say it straight up. Say it. Free folk dominance, because that's what it is. Now, you could argue that mammoths have a play in that, right?
Jump
you
over
could
to the
100%.
stats.
You could 100% say
EU is clear cut right now
in the win rates. Yep, 86% free folk.
86% free folk win rate.
Yep.
That's obscene.
And
And it's at the expense of Lannisters and Night's Watch, who are getting absolutely whipped.
Yeah, absolutely whipped in EU. Absolutely. Now you could argue out there that it's mammoths, it's mammoths, it's mammoths.
Mm-hmm.
It is. I think mammoths have a part to play. I think mammoths enable a second list. To be honest, a second list that had previously perhaps not been played.
Yeah.
Do I think mammoths are the cause of the problem though? No, I think they're an easy blame.
No. I think they've added a second dynamic to what was a previously incredibly powerful but one-dimensional army.
Yes. And I think that's the major takeaway there. It's not as simple as just saying that mammoths are really good. So, with that being said, let's head over to NA. We see in NA. We'll look at the top 8. We'll look at some, where we are. And we saw Lord Commander Bob, that guy who sometimes we don't know, sometimes we do know. I'm going to stop memeing with that. I'm going to be like, we know who Bob is now. We've got this guy. He is called Bob. He does sometimes appear on,
Is he good enough to be recognised now?
I think he probably is.
With a 4-0 and the fact that he's absolutely definitely qualified, we're allowed to say we know this guy.
Yeah.
He's earned it.
So Bob, 100%, great. But again, I discussed with Bob, Bob and me actually chat a lot during the week about game modes, about what we think is good and bad and things like that. And Bob has come a long way. I'm going to say this. Bob has come a long way, right? No. Because I remember the first major TSL game he commented on, right? The first time I knew who he was kind of, but the first time I really recognized him was when he complained about a 0-0 loss on Fire and Blood and how negative play experience it was. Yeah, we could go into that. There's a whole story. Yes, I agree. The fact that that can be a thing is a little bit silly, but ultimately there are ways to play around it. What's interesting with Bob is he took that lesson on board, he developed and learned, and he's not just picked up Starks because they're good, although you could argue that he has done that. He's actually looked at the way the games play out, and he's played in a way that is conducive to winning. He plays in the US like Stark players, like players in the EU do when we talk about the objective style gameplay. He makes the game about what he wants to make it about, and he plays that game, and he wins it. And it's proven because he has taken down some absolutely dominant names within the US. He took down Ariakas in round 2. He beat Mother of Dragons, Groose, who's... I wouldn't say he's not the most tremendous player in the world. He's trash. No, Groose is obviously a big name. He's a great guy, great player. But again, he beats this guy, and it was a comfortable win as well in terms of victory points. And then he goes out and beats Claw, someone else that everyone else had been really struggling with playing his Night's Watch. And he wasn't just a little win, he actually comprehensively beat him on the day. It was not close. Bob nearly tried to throw it at one point, but it wasn't close. Because Bob has adapted a style that wins games because he's playing the game and not this ulterior motive, right? And for that, Bob needs a shout out. It's the same with Ray. Ray from Our Deep Math, same thing. He goes in with a style that wins the game mode, and it throws people a baller. Let's not talk about Ray. So, in case you hadn't guessed, Carlo is really angry because Ray's qualified as Baratheons. And if I remember, let's go back 2 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago. If Baratheons qualify, it's because the people they play against are trash.
Yeah.
Jazzman, sorry mate. Weasel Kingdom, sorry mate. Brett, sorry mate. Top of them up, sorry mate.
You're all trash. You've all fucked me. No. Yeah. What can I say? The only thing that can save me now is a miracle. No. The only thing that can save me now is if somehow I have the most predictions right. Then I'm still going to say I told you so. But no. I've watched Ray play some games, and I think that he's played incredibly well. He's done the faction proud. Like like he's done the faction proud. Like there's a lot of players out there who, like practically myself included, who want to play Baratheons but wouldn't be willing to enter them because they don't think that they personally can qualify.
Mhm.
And he's showing that it can happen. So like he's showing he's a class player. We'll see how far he goes.
He also beat a Mother of Dragons player.
Actually just hotting up. Do you know what I mean? Like, guys, we're about to go into the knockout phase. He's in a very good position.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see if he can go all the way. Speaking of, like, spoke for a long time about Bob. This comes back to my idea that, Brett thinks that the best player in the world is hiding somewhere non-existent. Bob's shown that, like, a good player in a local community comes onto the TTS scene, you're gonna get spanked. And then, if you're actually a good player, you'll learn, adapt, find out more about the game that you never knew and understood in your own local store.
And play stars.
And then you can be great again. Then you can be great again. And
Yeah.
you might win. Bob could go on and win the whole fucking World Cup.
Mm-hmm.
But it was not the experience he had in the first tournament that he was exposed to. He had to learn, adapt, and understand what was going on when you play with the big boys, when the sharks are everywhere. Look at the names that have been falling in this tournament. Loads of like household names, shall we call them? Like people who we talk about doing well in tons of tournaments. This event is competitive. It is cutthroat, and people are gonna have to go through like 2 players that people are convinced should qualify are going to have to play each other, and only one of them is going to qualify. And that's just not just one game. That's going to happen again and again and again.
Mm-hmm.
It's really tooth and nail right now. And I think that, honestly, this is the most competitive tournament that's ever been run for A Song of Ice and Fire. Like, yeah. I just do. It's way more competitive than the NRG tournaments we've run in the past. The standard of players is so high.
The standard of game...
people who aren't going to make this 8 cut is a lot of quality players.
This is the thing, like we go down and we look at like the mid-table players and we're like, oh, that guy's all right, and that, but actually we say that these guys are all right. Like within the quality of the World Cup, they're all right, yeah. But actually within the quality of a lot of other players, these guys are really good. Like these are people who will probably just straight up dominate their local scene, within the context of what we understand. So, I think anybody who is, recording, to be honest, any wins, especially if you've got a win or 2 wins and you're up anywhere near the top half of the table at the moment, anywhere near it, you should be super proud. And if you're even in that like middle third, like that 20 to 10 bracket, you're not a bad player. You're not a bad player at all. And even the guys at the bottom, to be honest.
The winner of the Masters, before this event began, the world's #1 TTS ranked player, is currently sat at 2-2. That's how tough things are. This wasn't one random loss. He's won as many as he's lost so far. He's still in a position to go on and qualify. And he could still just go on a run and win the whole thing. He's shown he's very, very good at knockout format. But he's got to go through another tough opponent right now. Wap's strong player, so it's great event. Like I say, the tournament has actually like really reinvigorated my interest in the game, just because it's way more interesting watching these players duke it out than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah. I want Wap to beat Larks. I really want Larks not to make it to the finals because first of all, I want to see someone else, in a big boy tournament, and second of all, I can't like Wap. He was great to play against. It seems like a nice guy, and he's running Lannisters, and who doesn't want a Lannister just randomly cropping up into the promotion spots, eh? That would be absolutely great.
How we doing in these NA stats then? They're looking a little bit different to me.
Yes.
We don't see the wild variation that we see between the 80-odd% Free Folk win rate and the 20% Lannister win rate. Things are looking a lot better for NA.
What I would say, though, is that it comes back to exactly what we talked about in terms of EU. The difference in playstyle. And I've spoken to Charles, to Weasel about this, and about the games he's lost. And I did have the opportunity to see, I think both of them. I can't remember if I saw both of them or only the one. But in both cases, the reason that he lost with Free Folk, and I know it's anecdotal, was because he made the game about something that wasn't the game mode. And that is where he loses games. You know, you make mistakes. Mistakes will always cost you a game. It doesn't matter how you do it, but mistakes happen, and mistakes can cost you games. But you know, ultimately, you play the wrong way with the wrong faction, and this is again my criticism of Free Folk within the NA. You're looking at from a Free Folk player, and I feel like I'm right to criticize this, given that I'm currently having to face up against bloody Deoxys, which is going to be great, I'm sure, because I absolutely love the guy. So the thing is that we see the first Free Folk player doesn't step in until we see Chris at 6, and then it isn't until we see Rohan down at 15th. Yeah. And the most interesting thing about Chris's lists, let's have a quick check on them. Spot a word beginning with M-A-M. You can't spot a word with word beginning with M-A-M, because there ain't one on that page. He doesn't have Mammoth in his list.
Yeah.
So in the US, the player that is taking like Free Folk the furthest currently is a player who doesn't even run the most broken component. If that doesn't tell you where the problem lies within the game, and within the way people play, and within why, well, specifically why Free Folk is so good, and why Starks also will remain very strong. There you go. They are basically exactly the same list. Yeah, they're not quite the same list. He runs more trappers in the right hand, doesn't he? Oh no, he runs
Mance with Harmer or Harmer with Mance. You know, like it's well known. It's either that or Steyr with Harmer and Harmer with Steyr. They're like
for what it's worth.
That's Free Folk to a T. Like those three characters currently define the faction, and you play one of the three as your commander, and pretty much include the other two.
These are bad lists. He should have lost more than one game. He should have lost more than one game, definitely, because they're the same list. There should have been an alternative. I don't know. I'll play him in the mirror and just smack his ass all over the place. That'll do it.
Hey, well, he'll be able to change his lists if he qualifies. Got one more game. Crunch time.
I want to just
smack. Playing against Night's Watch.
Yeah. He's playing against Thranduil's Night's Watch.
Somebody from Heroes World who, all right, I was warned that Thranduil was a very good player. We'll see whether or not he's got the legs to finish this one off. You know, I don't want to go at them, but Heroes World as a whole, Ariakas not quite having the tournament that we would have expected. End line, touch and go.
He's trying.
They brought a lot of players. They're doing okay. They've had some huge results in the past. I did actually expect a little bit more, but it's crunch time. They might show their pedigree. It's time for people who really want to qualify to show that they really know what they're doing and prep for their game. And it's fire and blood. It's fighting time. Let's see who can win one of the most polarizing game modes that there is. He hasn't had many changes, so we'll find out where things are at.
So that is all the World Cup news. We will not touch predictions today because it's only 1 week to go, and there's quite a lot that can change, and we'll see where things lie. And it's been an hour and 3/4. I've got some beans on toast with some cheese here that my lovely partner's made for me. And so it's nearly time to say goodbye, I think. Any last things that we want to cover, Carlo?
No Baratheons will qualify.
It's just a lie now. It's just a lie now.
Somehow. I'll never give it up. Really well done to everybody who's still just in with a chance. Anybody who's 2-2 and is still playing to grab that last 7th, 8th spot, then you're doing great, honestly. Like you're doing as well as some amazing other players. I wouldn't be expecting myself to be doing any better if I'd entered. And
Sorry.
ever since I told people to stop asking me questions, the World Cup's been really easy. But no, it's been brilliant actually. Like I think people have really engaged with the site. It's the kind of people who are super involved in a Song of Ice and Fire stats in general, who have been entered into the World Cup, and just everybody submits their results. I haven't had to chase people. People submit them early, and then they ask for the round to be, they ask for the new round to be drawn because everybody's done their results. Everybody's doing their feedback. That's brilliant. We're going to be able to give prizes based on who's done well. There's a tiny word of warning. I will be publishing the feedback scores for everybody so you can see. I don't think that people should be getting at those at the bottom or anything. But if you are at the bottom, maybe just think, hey, maybe I could be a bit nicer. Maybe I don't need to be so argumentative about the rules, or maybe honestly, one of the things that I would be marking players down for is maybe I need to play a bit faster. Like that can annoy a lot of people. So take a look. Don't take too much from it. Lots of people have been rating each other very, very highly constantly throughout the event. But if you're at the top, give yourself a pat on the back. If you're at the bottom, think, in future, what can I do to make the experience better for both players?
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to give prizes to those who've been great opponents, because that's what it's about. That's what we're here for. And we're going to take those players on into the knockout stages, get super hyped for that part. So I'm
Definitely
feeling really surprisingly good about Song of Ice and Fire right now. Don't even know why.
It's just been one of those. Don't want those
to do with balance changes coming up.
Maybe. So yeah, that leaves us here, guys. Obviously a big shout out to Bob and Ray in the US. Obviously may the best player win in Fire and Blood. I do kind of want the hero story to continue, and the 0-0 loss, kind of like negative play experience in a Fire and Blood game in Bob's first game. Will it go full circle and him winning a game with Starks into Baratheons as the final round of the World Cup regionals, the qualifiers?
I want to see Bob Turtle. I want to see Bob Turtle in his own corner and play the negative Fire and Blood strat back on his opponent.
And then he'll just get Mel-bombed in the last turn and cry.
Don't do it, Bob.
Don't do it, Bob. Please don't run away. So will we see the full loop going round and Bob turning this 0-0 loss, negative playing experience, into a qualifier win, or will we see Ray absolutely carrying the flag for Indonesia and smashing it over the head of the US, being we are better?
No Baratheons will go 5-0. No Baratheons will go 5-0. God, Fire and Blood's a great game mode for them. It'll be a tough one.
I know, right? And then over in EU, obviously, good luck to Deoxys, I guess. I can't really say too much about that.
Yeah. He's who we're cheering for.
But I look forward to our game on Saturday, mate. I think it's going to be, if anything, it's going to be good fun because, we get on. So it's going to be great. We're going to enjoy it even if one of us loses. And the 50 quid to win my first tournament is on the way over to Australia as we speak. No, obviously we'll play on the day. May the best player win on the day as well. I look forward to it. Cool. We will catch you all next week. We'll give you the final lowdown of the World Cup. We'll go into it. I'll be crying in despair.
Regionals, Mickey.
Yeah, the World Cup regionals. I know, right?
We're like halfway. We'll have regional results. We'll be able to celebrate our champions of our own local metas.
Yep. Totally local.
No, we'll see what comes out from each, and then see what kind of things people are going to start talking about. Whether or not they're going to make any changes going into the knockouts. And it's gonna be good
going
for weeks, guys.
And I'll either be super happy or super sad. So that's always a good thing, right? We are playing for a draw. That's right, Doxies. A draw. Yes. Good man. Anyway, we will leave it there, guys, and we'll catch you next Monday for all the lowdown. I hope you have a great week. I hope you enjoy the last week of the World Cup qualifiers. And here's to more articles and more stuff from Michael Chanel, I guess.
Yeah.
See you next week.